everyone, my name is Christina and I'm a registered nurse from Alberta, Canada. I'm super passionate about all things holistic health and healing, as I really believe that we can help our bodies naturally heal in a lot of ways. So I am not a medical doctor and I can't prescribe. I just want to share this story with you to help you understand PCOS and how you can also help your body heal from this syndrome. So my own PCOS journey started just in my teen years. My grandma and my mother both had PCOS, and so there was a genetic link there. Right as soon as I was a teen, I started getting the longer cycles and irregular cycles, which is a common symptom of PCOS. It wasn't until I was in my adult years that I started getting the cystic acne. So when me and my husband got married, I was about 25, I believe. I kind of thought, you know what, we should kind of check things out and make sure that this won't affect my fertility, as my doctor had kind of noted that if I did have PCOS, that it can really affect your fertility, as many of you guys know. So I began with getting a pelvic ultrasound, and on that ultrasound, it did show that I had PCOS-like morphology, meaning that my uterus and ovaries looked like someone who has PCOS, confirming my diagnosis. So that's kind of where my journey began. Fortunately, because I did know before, I really did want to nip it in the butt, and I did know that there was natural ways to kind of aid PCOS or just help it in general. So I ended up going to see a preconception counselor right before we were going to consider having children, because I really wanted to optimize my health. So the preconception counselor did share with me that there are different ways that you can help influence your body and heal your body so that you can have that optimum fertility. I do want to just put a disclaimer in here that if you are wanting to conceive and you either do have PCOS or whether you don't, fertility has so many different aspects to it. And so your PCOS alone might not be affecting your fertility. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I would just really encourage people to have their lab tests done. And if they are trying to conceive, to really make sure that not only one aspect is being looked at, because infertility especially is just such a large concept. After going to a preconception counselor, I decided to see a naturopathic doctor just to kind of see where I could, again, optimize my health. I ended up getting some labs done. Some of the labs I got done were my hormones, those kinds of things. And actually, most of my stuff came up really great, which is awesome. I would really recommend you seeing a naturopathic doctor or even a regular doctor. Obviously, in Canada, our medical doctors are covered under Alberta Health. To see a naturopathic doctor, it did cost money, but luckily I did have some coverage through my benefits to help cover this cost, because it can be a lot. So I would just encourage that, even to use both the medical systems together. Like personally, what I did is I went to my medical doctor because I had the PCOS component. They ran lab tests and hormones and helped me kind of understand where my baseline was. And then I took those labs to my naturopathic doctor, and then she helped kind of look at how we could optimize my supplementing, my diet, all of those kinds of holistic aspects, which was really helpful. So personally, I believe that there are a few key aspects to really optimizing your own fertility, and I'm just going to talk about those today. The first area I'm going to personally speak to is diet. Diet is so important because it really creates the foundation of what's fueling your body. And I think that especially in cultures that are faster, we're a little bit more prone to pick those processed and convenient foods, which it can be difficult if you're working a lot of hours or however your lifestyle looks. But I think it's really important to remember that food really is medicine. And so what we're putting in our body is fueling our body, but it's also making up our cells and our DNA and all that kind of stuff. So the first kind of one is my doctor, naturopathic doctor, said that having a high protein diet is really protective against the issues that can come from people with PCOS. She mentioned that when you have PCOS, you are at higher risk for diabetes, and you're also at a higher risk for having high cholesterol. I kind of also just want to note that obviously living in a modern culture, we are so busy, probably busier than we should be. And so it can be really easy to grab processed foods. I know personally I eat processed foods. It's not that I don't, but processed foods do tend to have ingredients that are less optimal for our bodies. Having PCOS also has your body be susceptible to insulin resistance. So you really do want to kind of be watching your sugar intake. I'm not a believer in like cutting out all of these things because they're bad. I just think that's a recipe for disaster personally, because I don't think it's sustainable. But I do believe that, considering your carb intake can be good. And so that's my kind of second note in diet, is eating more of a low carb diet. I guess for myself, I just focus on eating carbs that are whole food. So like I kind of switched to eating a lot more quinoa because quinoa also has protein in it. Staying away from refined sugars. Honestly, added sugar, I really try to stay away as much as I can because I personally struggle with being addicted to sugar. I have switched to monk fruit sugar, which has helped. I was eating Splenda a lot before, using Splenda in the past, but there are some studies that are coming out that are linking those false sugars to kind of being harmful for our gut health. So I would just be aware of that. So another thing would be I do choose to eat organic when I can. I shop at Superstore or No Frill the most, which is like super cheap, amazing. You can tell I'm Canadian because it's the real Canadian Superstore, but those are kind of the stores I shop at because not only are they cheap, but they offer a lot of organic food. And that was one of the notes when I saw a preconception counselor that she said, try to get organic, and especially noting the Dirty Dozen. Okay, so dairy. Dairy is super inflammatory, unfortunately, and there is a link between the protein casein, which is found in cheese and other dairy products, and acne. I've also read studies and literature that show that whey is also connected to acne. So even before my own fertility journey, I do try to limit my dairy just because there is a link between that, and it also can just affect your hormones more. The other thing is caffeine. I try to limit my caffeine intake to 2 coffees a day. This is pretty hard for me too, because especially I'm at work. When I'm at work, we just like to keep the coffee flowing. So that has been really difficult for me. But what my naturopathic doctor has told me is to kind of have those 2 coffees and then have 2 decafs if you're going to have 4 coffees. And the last one is alcohol. The WHO just came up with new recommendations that no alcohol is safe. And I think especially when we're trying to conceive, alcohol is a known pterogen to babies being born. So I would just keep that in mind. For me personally, I do not drink alcohol. So the next area I'm going to speak to is supplements. So these are just the personal supplements that I use. Obviously, I recommend that you go to your own naturopathic doctor and find out what you can use. The first supplement that's super important for fertility is vitamin D. Vitamin D, especially if you live in Canada right now, there's snow everywhere and we're seeing the sun, obviously, but personally, I'm not a winter person, so I don't spend a lot of time outside. The second supplement that I use is Inositol. This is probably the most vital supplement in PCOS and specifically for period regulation, just because this one helps insulin function, and for some reason, I've just found that Inositol has helped regulate my cycle. When I'm not taking it, my cycle can sometimes be irregular, obviously with other factors included. The third supplement that I personally use and was recommended by my ND is zinc picolinate. I hope I'm saying that right, but I also take zinc. This is linked to good skin and really great for fertility. So the next supplement that I use is omega 369. This has great benefits to the baby and for also your PCOS symptoms. The next vitamin that I take is B100 complex. This is a B vitamin that has multiple B vitamins in it because there are so many of them. And it's really important to get one that obviously has 400 micrograms of folate, because that is really helpful and protectant against those neural tube deficiencies when you're trying to conceive. And then also personally, I eat a lot of vegetarian and vegan food, so having that B12 is super important for me too. And then I also make sure that I have one that has choline in it, because choline is also super important for baby development. The last supplement that I personally use is chromium. Chromium is great for insulin function and just helps that blood glucose as well. The next aspect that I'm going to speak to is environment. So environment is so critical when we are trying to conceive, because obviously, any environment that you're going to be putting yourself in, your body is going to be affected by that, and ultimately the baby is going to be affected. This is an area that I was aware of before I saw a preconception counselor, but I don't think that I really took it that seriously. So one of the things that I personally do is I try to keep my home as toxic free, obviously buzzword there, but as toxic free as I can and chemical free. Personally, my own preconception counselor, she knew that I was a nurse, and she informed me that because of the large amounts of industrial chemicals that we use can be extremely harmful, and especially as a nurse, because I'm dealing with medications that are harmful to conception as well. So that was already a pretty harmful environment for a baby. So basically, because I have such a harmful work environment, it's best for me to make my home environment a place where it can be just free from these kinds of toxins. I personally use 2 apps to help me do this, because I think at first when I kind of started to detoxify my house, I was very overwhelmed because the amounts of toxic chemicals that are harmful to us and children are just enormous. So I started kind of doing my own research, and I found these 2 apps that were super helpful. I will link them in the description box so that you guys can also use them. But one of them is called YUKA, and YUKA, I use it for beauty products, and then it has some skin products, or I forget what exactly it's for, but for sure my makeup, I use YUKA. And then for all other things that aren't on there, like cleaning supplies and just other things, I use the Environmental Working Group, EWG app as well. They both have apps, so you can just scan the barcodes. It makes it really easy. And I also just want to note that when you first kind of figure out that a lot of these things can be toxic to our bodies, it can be overwhelming. So what I would just encourage you is just take it one product at a time. I did not just throw everything out. I mean, of course you're welcome to, but I did not throw out all my old makeup and all my old cleaners. My cleaners, I did. A lot of them, I put them away. But for my makeup, it was really hard. So I slowly, each time I bought a new product, I would do my research and see what was available near me, because stores are going to be different in Canada versus wherever you live, and figure out a product and a brand that you like. I've also started using this other brand that I found on Amazon, and I switched all my shampoo to it, and now I'm using cleaning products and my laundry detergent, and it's just really helped, because obviously picking a product line that you like that's rated really high is great. I know my preconception counselor did say that, like, switching from no plastic, because plastic has BPA, but even if it doesn't have BPA, it has other chemicals that are similar to it. So switching to glass and switching to a stainless steel water bottle, and really just looking at the things that you're using in your kitchen. Like, obviously, Teflon isn't common anymore, but using a cast iron pan, those are all contributing factors to environment. Another area that I'd like to speak to is exercise and lifestyle. Obviously, we all know that exercise is so good for not only your physical health, but your mental health as well. I know personally, as I shared before, I'm not a huge winter person, so getting outside to get my exercise in the winter is difficult. So these are just kind of some things that I do to kind of stay on top of my exercise and make sure that I'm really just taking care of my body. So one of my goals every day is to get 10,000 steps. So I do wear a Fitbit tracker to kind of check how many steps that I get. Usually if you have an iPhone, it will also track that. But personally at work, I don't carry my phone. So that doesn't work for me. So I use a Fitbit and try to get those 10,000 steps. Obviously, getting outside, like today, you can't see outside, but it's a beautiful sunny day. There is a lot of snow outside though, so it kind of deters me a little bit. So what I do is I do have a city gym membership, and I like to walk the track, especially with my son. I take him in the stroller. My son is 22 months. I take him in the stroller and we just do laps at the track. I also believe that it's really important that you find a type of exercise or activity that you like. So whether that's yoga or weightlifting or whatever that looks like, that you kind of stick to something and maybe try to do those things 2 days a week. Personally, I like to weight lift. I don't always get to the gym because I do have a young son and my lifestyle is a bit hectic. Luckily, one of my workplaces does have a gym, so I do work out there after work sometimes or on my break. That's really helpful. I try to work out at home. I throw on a YouTube video with a HIIT exercise and just try to do that even for 15 minutes. It's so good for your heart. And and if you can find activities that you can do outside, like again, I'm from Canada, so skating or tobogganing, anything that's going to get your heart rate up is really great. So another area, and the last area that I'm going to speak to, is stress. I think that stress is really underlooked because it really can affect your hormones so much, especially when you have PCOS, with the cortisol function. It really can affect that. So I think really be mindful. And I think also if you are under stress for like a long period of time, sometimes we can actually not even think that we're under stress because we're so used to living in such a stressful lifestyle. So these are kind of some of the aspects that I do to mitigate stress. So one of them is I journal. My husband's actually helped me kind of create this routine. So when my mind is racing, especially at night, I am a bit of a night owl. I like to just do a brain dump. And if I'm just like have a bunch of stuff on my mind, I'll just either take a notepad or my cell phone and just open the notes and make notes of all the things that I have to do the next day. Or actually, one of the nurses that I work with, she recommended doing this after a busy shift at work. She writes down everything that happened at that shift, and then she can let it go. Because I know, especially when you work a high-stress job like nursing, you can kind of focus on certain things that happened at work and carry it home. And it's really important that we do have that work-life balance. Another thing that I've really worked on in this last year is my emotional regulation. Now, emotional regulation is just the way that you process and deal with emotions and stress and those kinds of things. I know personally the house that you grew up in is typically how you learn to regulate your emotions. So if your parents yelled a lot, you might also yell a lot, or you might be the opposite and shut down. So I think just being really intentional and understanding your own way that you process is helpful, but then also, getting more healthy ways to emotional regulate. If you find that you get really overworked or really stressed, taking those moments to do deep breathing or find strategies that help, like journaling, deep breathing, exercise, different ways. I think that emotional regulation is, again, also overlooked because we just assume, oh, well, this is the way that I am and this is the way that I function. But I don't believe that. I think that we all can change and we can all work on ourselves and figure out how to just, be better and function better. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to hopefully put some timestamps to help you navigate through each area so that you can skip back and rewatch, especially the supplements area. I'm going to put a list of the supplements that I use below, like I said. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And if you have another topic that you'd like me to speak to, just write it in the comments below. Thanks so much.